Welcome aboard Ascension Express. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Adam Namaste, also known as Mr. Namaste. And today I have a very special guest, Lucifer. What's up, bro? How's everything going?
Hi, Adam. Hi, everyone. My name is Lucifer, the light bringer. I love actually mentioning that because a lot of people, we always talk about how perception is everything. I find my name to be very strong, and a lot of people tend to actually focus on what is commonly known as the fallen angel, but if you look it up, it also means light bringer, light bearer. So, which is the duality of it that I love, that essentially is about what you focus on life. And that's how it changes your perception. I'm feeling wonderful, Adam. Miss you, man. It's been a while. How are you?
I missed you too, bro. It feels like forever, although it's just been a few weeks. I'm great, man. I'm feeling fantastic. Now that I'm talking to you, everything's fantastic, bro.
Thank you, man. Thank you. So just to give your audience just a quick intro of myself, I'm a life transformational coach and a master healer. I specialize in Reiki, Psyche, neurolinguistic programming, eye movement integration, a lot of the stuff that I know you're interested in, just working with subconscious energy, sound bath, sound healing. There's just a lot of different stuff that I deal with. And it's been an amazing journey. And it just, the, uh, the gifts and abilities, once you're on this path, it just keeps echoing and keeps manifesting, and it just brings you on that service path that it allows you to really tap into why we were put on this planet, to literally be able to love and serve, and allow the rest of it come from that manifestation of it as a side effect of it. So that's what I'm here for. So again, thank you for the opportunity to be on your show. Looking forward to our conversation today.
It's my pleasure and my honor, my friend. So, what I want to start out with is talking about the heart, because one of the first conversations we have, if not the very first, was about the heart and how so many people you have worked with have had issues around the heart. And I myself have struggled with this in many different ways. I put up walls, but I didn't realize how many walls I actually still had up until I last night went to a ceremony. It was for the super blue full moon, the rare one that's occurring. What happened was I went, and again, my ego was going off. Why am I here? And what am I going to get out of it? And all this chatter and stuff. And I pulled some cards and a message. And all of them, of course, revolved around the heart. And the message that was on the piece of paper, it said, love yourself first and the rest will follow.
That's beautiful.
And I stared at that and I was just like, okay, it's amazing, because I felt like in my life, I'm going around in circles. And I always say that the answer is usually right under your nose. And literally, once again, it was right under my nose. And to further the point, after I got this beautiful message and I really took that to heart, I went home and I did some research about it online, and I stumbled along this book called The Emotion Code, and the author behind it, some doctor, I forget his name off the top of my head, but this book, The Emotion Code, talks about the heart wall and how many heart walls are actually placed up on people's hearts. And this could come from way back, past lives, ancestors, like way back. It's not just necessarily this current life. So I would even say that perhaps why we experience some of the traumatic experiences that we do in this life, relationship wise, is because we're carrying that from past lives, from this deep lineage that is running in our blood, in our veins, in our soul. And we're not aware of it. And we have more things tacked onto it from different traumatic experiences that we face in this life, whether it's the loss of somebody, things somebody said that was really negative and harsh and cruel, just horrible experiences that all we take literally to heart and start building up walls. And I was saying to myself, why am I not manifesting things? Like, I understand the concepts. I'm doing the right things. I am thinking from the higher levels of consciousness, right? They talk about the vertical versus the horizontal. The horizontal, 3D, linear, it's got to happen A, B, C, D, right? And I got to know the outcome and all this kind of stuff. And the vertical, which is I am one with God, I am one with source, I am one with the universe, however you want to say it.
Mhm.
And you're just having this knowing, and you have this trust, and you have this no doubt, right? You eliminate doubt, you eliminate fear, you eliminate whatever is subconsciously in the way. But yet I was doing all this and still finding myself isolated, finding myself afraid, finding myself just not making a breakthrough. And so I was just flabbergasted because I could not figure out, right, what this was until this clear message came back so strong in my face that I was like, oh, of course. And I thought that I had healed my heart, and I thought that I had let my walls down. I thought that I'm vulnerable, which I am. I'm very transparent. I say it like it is. I don't hold back. But at the same time, I do have boundaries, which is what Aaron talked about in the event that we went to very strongly. How when you're an empath, you have to have strong boundaries, and that's what you learn from the narcissist and all that. But the bottom line is that we have so many walls still up in our heart space usually, and they could be added back on. Say we take them down, but they can be added back on by another thing that happens. So I would say that it's good for the maintenance aspect. And if we're also really so down that we feel like we can't even do that, this is where I feel like the assistance of another could really help us work through this energetically, because maybe we can't even do it for ourselves because we have so many trapped emotions within that we think that we're addressing, whether it's anger, hatred, fear, anxiety, stress, depression. And this is, by the way, apparently from what it says, is the cause of a lot of these negative experiences, emotions, depression, isolation, anxiety, stress, all these things that the mind is still trying to figure out, but cannot actually conceive, because it's like no matter how much effort you put in, it won't really vibrationally connect. It's almost even like, how could you let the source of creation into your heart if you're blocking it off? You think you're letting it in. You think you're letting him, it, whatever you want to call it, into your heart space, but you're not. Your mind thinks it is, but you're not over here. So this is what I discovered, and it was a huge like aha moment and really blew my mind,
Mhm.
and just showed me the importance of, yes, in the times of when you're alone, to take that time and to work through that. Meditation is a great way, but really just to listen in and tune in and find, and you don't even have to know exactly where it is located, because again, it could be from some forgotten repressed memory.
Mhm.
So essentially giving the love to yourself, because then you could have relationships that are healthy, right? Not codependent for whatever reason. And also ones that, even so the case, that are healthy, that are nurturing, that you're not going to constantly have questions about. You're not going to constantly doubt. You're not going to constantly be afraid of losing, right? Because it's one thing to have something, it's another thing to be afraid it's all going to be taken away. So I think there's that aspect. And then another thing I wanted to touch on before I let you go on and share your beautiful message here with everybody today is money. Money is also a deep one for a lot of people, because if you grew up poor, or you grew up struggling in some sense with money, or again, you had money and you're afraid it's going to be taken away for
Mhm.
whatever reason, whether because you actually experienced it or not, seeing the state of the world, how it is right now with money and over the years, it puts us in this fight or flight mode, constant survival, and not wanting to look at it as we're investing in ourselves, like you said, rather than, oh, I got to fork over this money and look how much money everything costs. How will I afford it? And what if I get ripped off, right? That's a big one for me. I don't want to get ripped off, man. Like, what is this? You know what I'm saying? Like, you're not going to just take my money. You know what I mean? I got to get every penny out of it. You know, how dare you rip me off? But sometimes when we look at that and we go, wait, what's the lesson here? What is this trying to show me? What is this trying to teach me? Why does this keep happening? There's got to be a reason, right, behind it. It can't just be random, so to speak. So I think this also comes from the way we grew up. If you have parents or authority figures or society or just people around you placing this strong emphasis on how important it is to save and not make mistakes with money. A lot of times a program will come up or something will come up and it's like, well, how am I going to afford that? How am I going to get there? And that's how I was feeling actually about this CLA program that they offered, the Conscious Leadership Academy program that they offered at the end of the event. And I had my hesitation in the past with some other offerings, but this one in particular just felt right to me and I felt called to do it. And I just said, let's do it. And yes, my ego again did come in the way and said, what will I get out of it? Or I feel like I made a mistake and I shouldn't have done that. And look at all this money it's going to cost and da da da. But just know that that's going to come up, I feel like, still. And the more that you do this, and the more that you, quote unquote, take the leap of faith and trust that you are investing in yourself and something good will come out of it. And you can't necessarily see how it will transpire in the now, but it will at some point. Then you'll see over time, wow, I can trust this, and it'll give you more of a reason to invest yourself and look at it that way rather than being like, oh, I'm just throwing all this money out the window and I'm not going to be left with anything. And I'm just going to keep harping on those mistakes that I made and how money was wasted and how I shouldn't have done that and all this remorse. So I feel like that just creates, again, more of a heart wall, more of an emotional block. And it's just a perpetual cycle, it seems, like one thing happens over here and then it ends up over here and you just keep adding it on, adding it on, adding on, and then by the end you basically block everything off, right? Everything that you truly desire to have in your life, it becomes this real struggle. It feels like you're pinching for pennies. It feels like you're desperate for experience. It feels like this is hardly coming to pass. I feel like I'm alone no matter what I do. I feel like I'm not connected. I feel like I'm not, all these kinds of things. And it's just incredible. It really, again, blows my mind. So, yeah, what do you have to say about that, my man?
Man, you've said a lot of beautiful things. I have so many different thoughts going at the same time, but I just wanted to absorb your thoughts before I formulate mine and speak in some of the things that you talked about. So, starting with the first thing, which is essentially our subconscious, and it's such an important piece that drives our behavior. Subconscious is 95% of our day-to-day activity. And the way the subconscious is formed, and I'm not going to even go just yet the pre-birth, but from the time that we're born to the age 7, it's about 90 to 95% of our personalities form during that time. And that's like essentially the theta wave brains that we have, which is more of a hypnosis state, the children that they have, that they're just literally are just absorbing everything that being imprinted on by either society, by the school, by their friends, the pre-kindergarten, all that stuff, right? Now, a lot of that, and a lot of us don't even remember that age past age 6. We might have little snippets of images, but think about it, like sometimes we might, if it's a very traumatic event, we do remember that. And just as you mentioned, a lot of the energy work that I do, like when we actually are able to get somebody in a hypnosis state and we're able to tap into some of that subconscious stuff, we're energetically cleansing some of these events that may have happened. The beauty of psyche and some of these energy modalities that are involved in psychology also, the difference between that is like when you go to a therapist, they're digging deep and just digging deep and deep. What I do is essentially figuring out what the blocks are and clearing the energy literally out of that energetic, that morphic field that surrounds us, right? And being able to replace that. So technically with that kind of work, you could actually, believe it or not, rewrite the past through different techniques. You can still keep the lesson, but you can actually erase that memory in a point that is not holding you back. It's such a beautiful work, and it's fantastic. The results of it are great. Now, that being said, from age 8 to about 14, that's the essentially modeling a stage of us. Like we are actually literally watching everything that is happening, what's acceptable in the society and what's not. You're not allowed to talk in the class, for example, or, what house are you going to? You're supposed to take your shoes off, and, everything that is acceptable and not, and everything that we are programmed on walking around right now and doing it. A lot of it has been happening during that stage. And after that, around 15 to 21, we're digging into the social aspect of it. We're going out of the family, right? Now we're actually learning the stuff from our peers, the opposite sex, the same sex, if that's what we're into, whatever that is. But you're actually expanding and stepping outside of that family and the close circle of friends and family to learn more about the society. So by the age 21, a lot of this is already, you're talking about 95% of your overall behavior and beliefs are formed, right? Now let's go back pre-birth. One thing that you beautifully mentioned is everything that has been handed down to us. I mean, anywhere between 7 to 14 generations, the DNA is being handed down. And one of the, I have a master's in psychology, so one of the beautiful experiments that always comes to mind is they took this male rat, the psychologist, and
Mm-hmm.
experienced it with classical conditioning. With they just essentially exposed cherry blossom smell followed with a shock, right? So soon after, as you would guess, only the cherry blossom smell without the shock would create that physical reaction of heart rate racing. The rat is running around trying to hide, anticipating the shock, blood pressure rising, all that, So they took this rat and put it with a female to procreate. And the babies, the little baby rats, which were born, never exposed to anything. The mother was never exposed to any shocks. And they introduced only the smell of the cherry blossom to the baby rats. What do you think was the reaction? Same reaction as the father. They started feeling the heart rate going. They don't know what's happening, but it's just like they are measuring it, and the same exact reaction as the father, which again, it shows that trauma, that DNA is being transferred to the next generation without you even knowing that. Now, bring that to us. Go back to your parents, go back to their parents, their parents. I mean, think about how life was challenging 13, 14 generations back. You're talking about war, famine, poverty, everything that has been just handed down. Now, again, that being said, through some of this energy work, through guided meditation, through going back, through plant medicine, which is actually a huge aspect of the healing part, which allows the left hand side of the brain to connect, to be able to actually purge some of these untapped emotions and memories that is in our subconscious. And a lot of people might just say, what is subconscious? Where is it? The subconscious is in your nervous system. That's what it is. It's like it is engraved in your DNA, in your nervous system. And through a lot of these practices, you're purging and you're cleansing it, right? The brain is what is processing the feelings and the emotions that is coming from it. You usually get in the stimulus, whether it's somebody cutting you off, whether somebody being abrasive. That stimulus is about to trigger something in you. Before that trigger comes up, you can just take his space, take that little moment of how am I going to respond to that? And that awareness of when it's building up is that it's really cool to just pay attention to that this energy that is building up inside of me, is that really me? Is that because they're doing something? Because
Yes.
technically nothing
Yes.
outside of you should have any impact on this inside. You're talking about boundaries, right? With a lot of work that I'm doing with energy work, at first I was just having a shield around me to just kind of like, because I do a lot of energy work to make sure I don't pick up stuff. But quickly I realized that I am my own shield. I have to be able to filter things out as it's coming through, just allow it to dissolve in the higher vibration as I'm connecting to Mother Gaia, as I'm connecting to the source. Just allow it to absorb and dissolve and not attach meanings to it, and just be able to sometimes shake it out. Sometimes it's a little harder, I have to admit, but that being able to just absorb that and just be able to just respond in a loving way, respond in a compassionate way, that is what raises us from an egotistical type of an approach, from an ego type of an approach, to a loving and compassionate approach. And honestly, I mean, what you said is so true, because a lot of us, when we interact with others, we're up here. And I've said this to, I don't know if we talked about this, the longest, and we've gone through a lot in life, right? But the longest and most challenging journey for every single one of us is coming from here to here. And literally coming from the space of your head, coming to the space of the heart. And it's
And
that
why
foot
do
and a
you
half.
feel that's so hard for people to do, even though it's been said in one way or another?
Yeah, a lot of it has to do with everything you talked about, because with everything that we go through life, you keep getting these heart guards up, right? Let's say if it's the first time your parents yell at you, right? That's traumatic for a child. There's soul fragments that happens around that. Imagine yourself as this
I
beautiful.
resonate with that 100%. That's something that I experienced greatly in my childhood.
Yes.
Hmm.
So think about you're this beautiful ball of energy, full of curiosity, full of creativity, right? And then you do something that you don't know that you're doing anything, that it could be just as simple as you spilling something on the ground, right? Kids do that.
Hmm.
And that immediate energetic assault that comes from a parent, from a mentor, from a caretaker, it is like a lightning ball that hits this ball of energy. And imagine there's these like fragments that just like kind of until you kind of catch yourself. And those
And would
soul
you say
fragments.
those are the moments that shape your personality as well?
Oh, absolutely. It does. And that's what happens with soul fragments, that there's a part of you that is being preserved, that it just literally is still connected to you. Imagine like there's like these beautiful cores that are attached to us, and then you have like a little bit of a little mini atom, like a 4 or 5 year old atom that is still kind of like hasn't been reintegrated back. And some of the work in terms of reintegration of soul fragment, getting rid of shadow energy, discordant energy, everything that has been attached to us and impacted us through that whole tender age. That again, the sad part is our parents didn't know any better either, right? Because think about it, their DNA came up from above. Their learning and subconscious came from their ages of essentially birth to 6, 7 years old. So when you're able to actually recognize that, and through meditation, through energy work, are able to actually have gratitude and forgiveness, that's a huge part to be able to clear some of these heart walls, right? To actually sending gratitude for every experience that you've had. And that's the key part that really was a game changer for me. That we're talking about manifestation, right? So if you're operating 95% on subconscious, and that 5% is the conscious mind, and you're 5% of the time focusing on what you want, which one do you think is going to have a bigger processor if you're looking at it as a computer? 95% processor or a 5% processor, right? So naturally, that 95% is going to win every time, unless that's why a lot of us that yeah a lot of us have watched the movie Secret, and a lot of us are like, oh, I'm going to manifest, I'm going to meditate, but the rest of the day is going about these limited beliefs. and
Ah,
and,
yes.
and
And
until
I, I just have to
go
interject for a
ahead.
second because I feel like that was my point earlier, where
Mhm.
for a long time, especially over the past few years, I have tried to follow these principles. And you know what? When I was younger, say like a teenager, I was manifesting without realizing it. Like, I don't know what came over me, but after my first relationship, which was really, in hindsight, like a cute, silly little relationship that I had for 6 months, and it wasn't really that big of a deal. But in my mind, when I was younger, it was, right, because
Mhm.
I got dumped and it didn't feel good and blah blah blah. But in hindsight, I can look at it and say, oh, that was something that I needed to go through. And because of it, I said, let me take out a journal and let me just write down the person that I want to manifest, right? My new girlfriend.
Mhm.
And I didn't go too much into depth. I just wrote some things that I wanted to manifest. I closed the book, I forgot about it. And what do you know? I guess within a few weeks to a month later, it happened. And I didn't think about it too much. I had no resistance, probably because I didn't have too many hard guards at that point, and it happened for me. But I think over time, right, throughout the years, with more experiences, the hard guards and the blocks started to come up. And so
Yes.
that's why I feel like throughout the days that I've been going through over these past few years, like I'll set the intention. I'll try from the morning when I wake up, even though when I wake up, I'll feel like, oh God, another day. Like, why am I here? I'm still trying to figure this out, and
Mhm.
everything's the same. And woe is me, like all these kind of thoughts. And I try to shake it off. And then I'm like, okay, I'm good. until I get out the door and I start driving and it happens all over again. And then I get out the car and it happens all over again. And I'm just looking around in my environment and I hate living here. And why am I here? And like all these negative thoughts that I'm trying to like not have and stay positive and be in this thought process. And but I'm again neglecting the heart space.
This is beautiful because on average, we have 70,000 thoughts per day. This is just science because they can measure thoughts, right? Through EEG, MEG, you can just measure thoughts, and each thought has its own frequency. Positive thoughts that are like uplifting have a different frequency than thoughts that are negative. It's just beautifully recorded. Out of that 70,000, 80% of them are negative thoughts. That's a huge number, 70,000. You're talking about over like
Huge.
56,000. And out of that, 95% of it are repetitive thoughts. So think about it as
Oh yeah, you better
thinking about
believe it.
these images. You keep firing and wiring these neurons together in your head that is just creating those emotions. So your thoughts are creating the emotions that is bringing you down, that is allowing you to just kind of like go back in that your body, those hormones, the stress hormones are highly addicting, right? Even your mind at 5% wants to focus on what it needs to focus. That subconscious and your body, think about it. Think about a drug addict, right? It's not the mind that wants this, it's the body that is craving it and the mind gives in. So the mind is going back to those thoughts to facilitate that familiar feeling. Now, the way to break through that a lot of times is, again, meditation is one. The other part of it is being aware of it, that these thoughts are not serving me. And honestly, a lot of light workers, and I consider you one,
Thank you.
there's a big shift that is happening in the universe, has been happening. We're talking about Aaron, Matt, Victor, everybody that is just in this realm. And there's an awakening that is happening. And once you realize that, why am I here? But once you start accepting that the role, the goal, I know that you started your coaching and your spiritual journey and full time are doing it just like I am. And we all have had a past in whether corporate America and careers that we recognize that those careers are not serving why we're here. And at some point that shift happens, that you recognize I am here to serve and raise that collective consciousness to be able to ascend, not just myself, and also help the other ones that are in need of it to be able to get there. And the more you tap into that, you're able to actually clear that heart even more and more. And a big part of it, Adam, comes from forgiveness, forgiving yourself and forgiving anybody and everybody else that has done anything that has happened for you that is a negative impact. And the way to do that, and this was a beautiful learning for me, is we manifest everything. And I know some people have a hard time accepting this. It's like, I didn't manifest this crash. I didn't manifest the sexual trauma. I didn't manifest this, right? But I'm going to be in your face and tell you, yes, you did. Because it's meant for your growth. It's meant for you to get you to where you want to go. You may not have directly thought about, I want this specific thing to happen to me, but a collective accumulation of low vibrations, negative thoughts, what you put out, your thoughts carry frequencies, right? They can measure through MEG, which is like the electrodes are not even touching your head, around this far apart from your head. And they can measure your thoughts frequency. You're projecting out to the field. So you are getting back stuff based on that projection. It's not just that you just sit there and manifest the life that you want. You also, when you worry about things, is literally like praying for something you don't want. That's exactly what that is. And a lot of us do that on a daily basis. We're worried about the future. We're thinking about the traumatic past that happened, that victim mentality that this happened to me, and that really shifts that.
I want to say also that I find with our thought process and our experience and everything, it's very unhelpful to stay quiet for too long. Like, it's one thing to go into meditation, but I think also when you're not channeling this creative flow, this information, this whatever's coming through with you out somehow, it stays repressed. Yes. And it keeps you further into that worry and further into that stress and further into that fight or flight. It's like literally like, just get it out of me somehow, just channel it, whether it's through speaking, whether it's through writing, whether it's through whatever it is. I feel like just us light workers,
Hmm.
are this way for that reason, like it's just a part of who we are.
Absolutely. So, speaking of light, I mean, if you think about it, energetically speaking, we are made out of energy. It's pure energy down to your atomic level, to the subatomic level. And that's what energy is. I mean, if you go down with magnifying essentially microscopes and breaking down the DNA and looking at the atom, and it's just like electrical. We are electrical beings, right? We're emitting electricity, believe it or not. It's measurable again. Your heart rate has a field of about 2 or 3 feet almost, which is ironically, that's our personal space, right? So if you think about that, we're also made out of light and shadow. That shadow self that we have is that darker side that we have, right? We all have that, that is driven by ego. And ego is essentially meant to be put there to protect us. A lot of the people look at it as a bad thing. It's good to be aware of it. It's necessary for our survival in this world. But again, being able to check it when you need to, being able to, it gives you that self of identity. It gives you that self of the accumulation of things, right? What makes you feel good, what doesn't. Those are the things that are needed for this three-dimensional world. But for the other parts, which is essentially the spiritual world, you need the light to work. So it's like, imagine the yin and yang. You got the white side and the dark side that are going
Right.
together, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as
Mm-hmm.
long as you're able to embrace that shadow self and be able to acknowledge that, and that shadow self, that shadow energy is what is attracting to you the things that are unpleasant, whether it's a false twin flame, whether it's these energetic breakups. But that's what I'm saying is, if we can actually take ownership of that, that I manifested this. I'm to a point that I literally, everything that I have right now in my life and everything that is happening for me, some of it is unpleasant, but I'm able to look at it and just go in and just like deep down when I check it, and I'm like, you know what? That's something I needed. Subconsciously, I didn't even know that I needed that. But what's great about it is I'm getting XYZ out of it. And that's a beautiful thing if you're able to just kind of like think about it. I mean, I had a friend of mine had a car accident, and she was just also upset about it. And she was just like, you see, I didn't manifest this, and she knows what I think. And I'm like, well, let me ask you this. You've been wanting a brand new car, and you said you couldn't afford it. Yes, you did kind of, if you think about it, you weren't at fault. So the insurance of the other person's paying for the car. Instead of fixing this, why don't you buy a new car? And she was like, huh, I guess I could do that. I'm like, there it is. So it's, you got to like literally look at what's great about this situation. It's like, again, when you have those intentions, when you have those thoughts about the things that you want or you don't want, just be aware that have their own frequency. If you are walking around with low frequencies of fear, limiting beliefs, lack of self-worth, lack of self-love, these are very low frequencies. And don't be surprised when shit's gonna come your way. I mean, that's generally is that way. And for you to be able to, and the way to clear that heart space is if you take ownership of all of it, and knowing that we are these beautiful spiritual beings having just a brief physical experience in this journey. That's it. And it's, if you think about it, whether you believe it or not, since energy never dies, it only transforms, it's never destroyed. You, through tapping into Akashic records, I don't know if your audience is familiar with that. Akashic records are essentially energy pre-manifestation, which includes everything from your own energy as you were in the womb and coming up, and through meditation and through tapping into it, you can actually tap into it, and through everybody else's, because we're all made out of the same energy. There is that foundation of it that is there that you can actually sense. And beautiful part of it is like, one time through plant medicine journey, I actually experienced that was one of my Kundalini awakenings a few years ago, that I was able to tap into everything. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Lucy, when she's at like
Mm-hmm.
100% brain capacity, and she's just like,
Amazing movie, man. Yeah, I've seen it
so
more than once.
before I've even seen that movie, like I experienced that I was so many different people that you can just like, and this happened within like 2 hours of the journey that I was going to. It was like a 4 or 5 hour journey, but the the ability to tap into all those emotions from every saint there is, from every tyrant there is, from every victim that is, and feel those emotions, and just knowing that, you know what, the spirit, the energy doesn't feel emotions. That's why we're going through this physical form. And you can kind of tap into all these past, future lives. And I know we're just kind of going through this timeline, and it's just difficult for some people to just imagine that, okay, I've lived past lives and also future lives. But again, this is the timeline that we're in right now, right? In this 3D world, because time and space, if you're ascending to like 8th dimension, literally does not really exist. That's the dimension that you can have full access to the Akashic record, and you can just kind of like see it through your third eye. And the more you get into that meditative state and you can do that, and the more you take ownership for what is happening and what's creating, it's almost like, think about this as spiritual, the godness in you, the uniqueness that you have, right? Because we're all made out of this God source energy, right? Whether you believe in God, whether you believe in galaxies, whether you believe in energy, whether you believe in universe, whatever you want to call it, let's call it life source energy, right? You have it, I have it, it's the same exact thing. So if I'm able to connect with you, if I have my self-love, I can also have that empathic and connecting with you, and being able to tap into your emotions, being able to tap into your ancestral emotions, same as yours, because again, it is all one. And once you're able to clear it that way, and knowing that we're creating this movie, this journey for ourselves, and it's just literally all that is, it's the game, it's the journey. And a beautiful movie is designed with everything in it, right? It's got drama, it's got trauma, it's got laugh, it's got comedy, it's got action, right? And if you look at it that way, that, hey, I'm the creator, I'm the director, I'm the audience, I'm just everything in this movie, and I'm just going with it, and just being able to take ownership of that instead of being the victim, and just taking the lesson of, what was my lesson in this? What's great about this situation? How can I turn this around so I'm not defined by it? Knowing that it was something that was attracted to me based on whatever I needed to experience, right? And being able to do that, it just really empowers you to have a completely different mindset, and literally take away that victim mentality that is going to result in saying a lot of low frequency things. One of the things that I like to share with your audience too is like the word "I am." If you were to look at it in a biblical sense, in the New Testament, it was a beautiful story that I actually read, that like when Moses is going up to the mountain with the burning bush, and the message is given to go back and free yourself, free your people. It says, well, who do I say that is talking to me? He says, I am that I am. I am is literally the name of the creator. In the Torah, when you go back even further, in Hebrew is Hineni. Hineni essentially translates for here I am, or I am here. So if you think about it, when you say here, that godness, that creator that is in you, I am, is such a powerful word that we use, and a lot of us use it in such limiting thoughts and beliefs, that if you were to just think about every time I'm saying the word I am, and I'm attaching something of low frequency, like I am unworthy, I am poor, I don't have, like I am not lovable, I am weak, I'm not good enough.
And
consider
so
that blasphemy, literally. You have to use it, attach it with a positive thing to clear that space of heart.
And so can we say that one may consciously say it to themselves, I am worthy, I am loved, I am abundant, I am safe, I am protected, whatever that may be. But then they look outside to the reality, and these things come into their experiences, and they're not receiving it. So then they will default back into, I am not, basically the opposite. I am not loved. I am not worthy. I am not abundant. And to the point where they're saying to themselves, and I know I've said, will I ever get my manifestation? Is it ever going to happen? Because all these years have gone by, and here I am, still this, still that, still not making any real headway with it. So what's wrong with me, right? Then the thought process is like, I'm doing all these things, but then it's like, why is it working seemingly for other people, but not me? So how would you answer that?
That's a beautiful question. And again, remember that 95% is pretty powerful. That is the subconscious that is in play. So first, you got to be able to change that. And the way to do it is one through NLP, neuro linguistic programming, as you work with either a life coach who's trained in it, or just being able to be aware of those thoughts that are coming in. One thing I would ask all of my friends is literally unlearn the word I cannot. Because you can, as Henry Ford says, if you believe you can or you believe you cannot, you are right. So erase that word I can't out of your vocabulary. Don't ever say it. If you say it, catch yourself and rephrase it. Because when you say that, your mind immediately shuts down and there's no other options that comes to play as far as I haven't figured it out yet. I'm going to figure it out, right? So those self-talks are hugely important. The other part of it is um, we can actually reprogram the subconscious as an adult through either hypnosis and through also naturally there's two times right before you fall asleep those theta brain waves are starting to happen again. So imagine if you have affirmation like I am type affirmations that are playing in the background to help you reframe those thoughts. And also right before you wake up, that theta brain waves are happening in those two times. Now, I've actually had my affirmations usually on a loop because I'm a light sleeper, and several times during the night I might wake up, I might want to get water. So I'm kind of doubling up my chances as I wake up and go back to sleep. So just kind of I'm paying attention to it as it's playing. But definitely work on changing that mindset by playing those affirmations right before you go to sleep and as you're playing as you're waking up, so you can find the programs that you want to put in the place of the pre-programs that are there. You already know in your gut feeling what you want to say about your I am statement, right? So if you know that you don't feel abundant, you need to start feeling abundant. And the other part that I love, Dr. Bruce Lipton says, sometimes you just fake it till you make it. You keep saying I am abundant, you keep saying I am happy. But the other thing is having gratitude for the things that you have, which is simple. It's about like the mindset, right? Think about it. I don't know what kind of vehicle you have, but let's say on average, our vehicles are anywhere from 200 horsepower to 300 horsepower, right? On
Mm-hmm.
average.
Mm-hmm.
You have 300 horses attached to your carriage. What king in the history do you know that had his carriage being pulled with 300 horses? You're talking about abundance of the technology that we have, that at your fingertip, you can connect to anybody. You're in Colorado right now. I'm in California. We're talking together, like just like you're here, having this passionate conversation, that abundance of communication. That I mean, look at your wardrobe, the clothes that you have, the food that you have the options of purchasing and putting in your body. Like a lot of time we're like, oh, I spent $300 on groceries. What we talked about is, hey, you know what? I am abundant enough that I can invest $300 in the stuff that I want to put in me that makes me operate the way I want to operate. Like there's a lot of things to be focused on and change that mentality of from lack of to abundant of. And when that happens and you're in that state of gratitude, that heart starts opening up. That feeling starts changing. You're starting manifesting from the inside out. And add that with the unconditional love that we just talked about in terms of if, and you know yourself if that is true or not. If you can connect to the fact that we are all one, made out of the same essence, going back to the source, coming back again to experience this game of life. And we go through this forgetfulness that we're this powerful spiritual being, that Godness in you. When I'm doing Reiki and I'm treating my clients, as I'm centering before I channel the Mother Gaia, the source energy, I'm looking at myself as a God treating this God or goddess that is laying on the massage table, for example. You know what I mean? And that essentially just like it's literally just channeling that energy and that divine energy to connect with it. And a lot of us, unfortunately, don't think of ourselves as such. We
Mm-hmm.
are focused on this three-dimensional world, this physical world. You don't tap into your divine self to know that I am empowered. I am beautiful. I am loved. I am abundant when you look at it. I mean, look at the friends that you have. You can just walk outside and just take a deep breath and look at the nature. That belongs to you. You're a part of it, right? It's not about wealth accumulation. When you're operating in that space of heart and that gratitude, high frequency of joy, compassion, empathy, the side effect of it is all the other stuff that is going to come your way. I mean, if you were ever to go back to it, have you ever noticed, like, when you're actually in that space, how smooth things are working out? Money kind of shows up, whether it's a tax refund or whatever, that might be a gift, or it might be your paycheck, or it might be a bonus that you haven't even noticed. It's the chances, a lot of us are focused on the lack of it. Oh, the bill is due. Oh, I got to do this. And one thing, it never fails when I do. I know you work with pendulums. I love my crystal pendulums, so I do crystal healing too. And when I do chakra activations with crystal, Adam, it has never failed. Everybody's left hand and right hand is usually symbolizes your giving hand. It's always like very active. When I hold it on, it starts spinning immediately. Left hand, man, it takes a lot of work for me to get it. And the left hand usually symbolizes receiving, right? So when you practice this on yourself, see which hand activates even quicker. And when you activate that, just allow that energy to flow, allow that receivingness to flow, because as a child, even, we're always just told that it's like, hey, you got to share this. That person needs it more than you. And a lot of us, that kind of gets in our head, right? But being able to receive also that you are deserving, you need to have this stuff, you would like to have it, right? And it's good for you to have it. You are abundant, and being able to activate that, it goes a long way with that, which kind of transfers to the money part that you were talking about. As you mentioned, a lot of us essentially either medium or average in terms of income. Now, we're talking abundant and changing mindsets, right? Any of your audience, any of my audience that is going to be listening to this, on average, the planet's income average on a daily basis is like $2 to $5 a day. So think about the abundance that you have when you actually get your paycheck. And I know our cost of living is different, but on average, you're talking about 8 billion people on the planet. So if you're able to just consider that I am abundant, you got this thousands of dollar paycheck coming in, right? And just being able to learn how to budget yourself, right? Maybe cook a couple of more times at home. Maybe don't have to spend your money on extra stuff that you don't want to spend it. Or if you want to, as you mentioned, invest on something that is going to return to you. Like, it was a great investment for me to go to that LA experience. I met so many different wonderful friends that they joined us on our sound bath
100%,
healing
bro.
at
Yeah, it
the
was epic.
beach. So that's the thing. It's like, once you learn that this is an investment, and honestly, setting out a budget, it's like, you know what? I personally put, $5,000 to $8,000 a year on education investment for myself, because I like to continue learning all the stuff that I'm learning to be able to, again, give back, right? The learning and the spiritual growth and the learning process never stops. Even though it's like, it's beautiful to know that in terms of spirituality, many of these things come naturally to us, because, again, we go through this veil of forgetfulness when we come to this world. But the more you start remembering why we're here, especially as light workers, and connecting to those angelic guides, your angelic, essentially, family that is guiding you through this, whether it's ancestral that are there, whether it's like literally archangels, and just be able to just tap into that, the more and more you're guided, the more and more you're remembering, the more and more you can follow your gut feeling, right? That gut feeling is something, as you mentioned, it's like your gut feeling says you want to do this, but then the brain takes over, right?
Oh my
And
God. I went through that so many times. So many times with so many different things, but especially podcasts, videos. How am I going to look on video? Oh, I don't like how I look today. I'm not going on. I don't like
right.
how I sound. I don't like how I use too many fillers. I don't like how I delivered the message. I didn't like how I didn't deliver that message. Whatever it is, I'm always like in my head until I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it anyway. And
Yeah.
just know that things will improve along the way, which is what Aaron, Vic, and Matt all said when we were there.
Hmm.
So, it's so true. It's like, we're not going to always get it right, be perfect, whatever it is. You just got to like do it and trust that you'll improve. Or maybe that was perfect and you're just not thinking that it was, because it's from your personal perspective and we're very hard on ourselves, kind of thing. But man, there have been so many times where I just can't get over myself, and I'm just like, no, I can't do it because of X, Y, and Z. I don't have the right equipment. I don't sound good enough. I went through that like crazy, like trying to find the right microphone, the right headphones, the right everything for it to be absolutely perfect. There can't be any background noise. There can't be any of this. But then you'll see many people online doing it anyway who have those things going on, and yet they have quite an audience and people are listening and they love it. Meanwhile, I'm here and be like, no, I could never do that on my channel. And this irritates me so much, like hearing swallowing sounds or breathing noises or whatever it is, like, man, I've been through that. And me particularly, who has an OCD mind, it's like, if I allow it to, it'll just go quickly into a nightmare and just forget about it.
Right. So several things that you mentioned when you say you can't do it or this can't be that way. So again, you're setting that expectation for yourself that is like, oh, I have to do it. And then be aware of those can't words that you're throwing in, right? Because it's not just to the podcast, it's carrying over to other stuff, right? It's becoming more of a thing. And then the other part of that is it's a choice. It's like at this point, a lot of times, like people are like, oh, I'm totally OCD about this. Again, I have all this. So again, you have to be able to recognize, is this behavior serving me or not? And at that moment, you literally make a choice to change it. It literally is a choice. It becomes awareness, right? It takes a little practice.
So you're talking about identity shifting.
Yes. So our identity, I love that you brought that up. Our identity is essentially formed by our beliefs, right? Our beliefs form our thoughts. But our beliefs, again, think about it, it's not even ours. It's been handed down through generations. It's been imprinted on us during that childhood, tender ages of childhood. Like imagine, I mean, back in the I believe it was medieval time. I think the Catholic Church essentially would just say, give me any kid between ages of like born to like 6 or 7, and I'll show you the man, because that's all it takes. Like literally, you put them in that environment, and then you have that mindset. The martyrism that happens, for example, in Middle East, for example, if you think about it, the suicide bombers and all that, these are not an adults that are going that way. They're cultivating it as children. Right. So it's just like that mindset, when it shifts, it becomes the belief, it becomes the identity, it becomes who you feel like you are. Right. And that rigidness of the mind is such a dangerous thing, especially what I learned in the spirituality is I have to be open to everything. Right. If I wanted to work on my clairaudience, if I wanted to work on my clairvoyance, clairsentience, right. Feeling stuff. And you cannot have you cannot have that vividity if you are so rigid, right? Because sometimes a lot of our work, people could be like, oh, you're delusional, you're imagining things. But that's how our system, the 5 senses in this reality works. You're hearing stuff, you're sensing stuff, you're seeing stuff, right? That's our transponder essentially. So whether somebody believes I'm being delusional or not, but when I'm giving you a message and I feel that's what's the case and that happens for you, you can call me delusional all you want, but I'm able to tap into something that probably in the 3 world that you're not really seeing. It's kind of like the Matrix, if you will, right? You kind of like see it sitting on that side. You're able to see these things that are about to happen, and you kind of go with that gut feeling. Because what I love about that whole gut feeling and the heart, this is how important it is to clear the heart and think in that space than the brain. So there's another psychological test that I love to share usually is, the research is, let's say they have like somebody like you sit in front of a computer and they show peaceful images, flower, rainbow, ocean, and they're measuring your heart rate, your brain waves, right? And then in between, they start throwing things that are very energetically charged, like a German Shepherd attacking, bombs going off, people getting bloody, car accident, things like that. And your heart rate changes. So does your brain. Now, once that equilibrium has happened, they found something fascinating. Before they showed the next image, if it was a common effect, this is about 15, 20 seconds before the next image shows, the heart, before even brain processed it, if it was a common effect that was coming up, the heart was already sensing it through the quantum field. It was going down about 15, 20 seconds before. And vice versa. If it was like they're showing that dog that is attacking, before that image even shows, your heart rate going up, and then your brain starts reacting to it after it sees it. But this is where it's important to go with that gut feeling, and you be really attuned to it, that what is feeling right before the brain takes over. Your stomach lining around, like think about your solar plexus chakra, right, right around the rib
Hmm.
cage, coming down below, which essentially is in charge of the internal organs. And you have over like 1 billion neurons. That's more neurons than you have in your brain. Essentially, scientists, they call it the second brain. However, that's where the gut feeling sensation comes from. But a lot of times, as you just mentioned, when we feel that, we are quick to dismiss it because the fight and flight, the survival mechanism kicks in, right? Well, what if I did this? I don't have
So
that.
with, let's say, junk food, if I'm trying to give up junk food and I'm trying to shift my identity to someone who doesn't eat junk food, who eats healthy, good food, quote unquote.
Mhm.
So would I reach a point where I look at junk food and it's no longer attractive to me? I'm no longer tempted by it, or I'm no longer compatible with it. Like, would it be
You can
that?
definitely do that. You can definitely do that. So one thing I love to do with food, and as a previous personal trainer, I mean, I literally pay attention to what I put in my body, especially with the line of work that I do to maintain that high level of purity and energy, is muscle testing. And one thing that there's different muscle testing. You could do the finger thing, but what I really love to do is body sway. So the way it works is you stand up straight with your feet shoulder apart, right? And then you kind of put your hands either on the side, or you could cross it over your chest. And you ask a question, you just close your eyes, but you ground your feet, but not rigid, right? Like you literally are grounded from ankle down, and you stand up tall and you ask a question to regulate something that you know the answer to. Like, for example, my name is Adam, right? And you
Mhm.
sense if your body's shifting forward a little bit or backwards. If it's the true statement, your body sense, and sometimes it's visible, sometimes it's not. But once you get used to it, it becomes very visible to the audience too. And then you could just say, "My name is Lucifer," and you feel like you're shifting back. That's the muscle testing. And now you could bring in the food inside of you, and you could just start asking, body, do I want to put this inside of my body? And you literally have to surrender to just allow it to happen. You'd be surprised what the body would tell you, because food has its own energetic field. Everything has energy, right? And their own field, especially when it doesn't go with the frequency of your body and what it needs. You tend to shift back a little bit. When it does want it and it's okay with it, it comes in. Sometimes it's I do that, like especially when I'm going through my regiment of like you might want to eat a little something that it's like, oh, I still want to eat this right now, but I'm like, okay, let me muscle test it. Damn it, it's like I don't need to put it in my body, so it's like I start shifting back. I do that sometimes with plant medicine, for example, to determine the amount based on the weight. Is this the amount that the body would respond well to be able to have the proper journey that it needs to have to have a positive experience, and you just kind of feel the shift back and forth. It's a very effective way once you can regulate it, but you got to make sure you're not manipulating it, right? You're not allowing the brain to take over. I really want this ice cream. Okay, I'm leaning forward. You know what I mean? Instead of just literally feeling it. And sometimes you'll be surprised. Like I have put, this is as crazy as it sounds. Like again, when I get on those diets that I'm like, okay, beach body, let's go. It's summertime, right?
Hmm.
I might just put a couple of scoops of like ice cream in a bowl and I put it in my chest and I'm like, am I ready to consume this? Does the body want this? And I might go forward and I'll take another spoon. I put it in there. Yes, it's still forward. I put another one. It's going back. I'm like, damn it, I got to take this one back. But your body kind of knows what it needs and what can process without it being absorbing all the fat and the toxins and everything. So if you just actually can do that little portion control with it and rely on that, and honestly, stop filling your cup when it's full. A lot of us overeat stuff. You
Hmm.
might be satisfied with a small fry or a happy meal maybe even, but guess what, we got to get that double thing. So it's just a
The
matter
eyes
of
are always bigger than the stomach.
oh, absolutely. So it's just literally it's a lot of fun stuff that you could do to enjoy the journey. And from time to time you can have a cheat day, right? I mean, but just see how your body reacts to it. I mean, I have been caffeine junkie for a longest time. But honestly, I stopped drinking caffeine as of about a month ago. It wasn't hard at all. And the reason I did it was I had a friend of mine we were actually chatting with, and she shared with me that it has helped her with deeper meditation. And I'm like, man, I didn't even think about it. I meditate every morning, but guess what? Right before that, I'm drinking coffee. Man, ever since I took the caffeine out, I am able to go quicker to that meditative state. And I go throughout the day without feeling the need for caffeine, for coffee. And I'm not saying that that should be for everybody, but what I'm saying is you realize what works for you and what doesn't. Right. If my mantra is to just meditate every day and I do 30, 40 minutes of meditation and it takes me 10 minutes to get to that level that I want to get there, why not get there in 2? Why not get there in 3? Right? To just enjoy that journey even longer. And I can put decaf coffee. Honestly, that placebo effect would work for me if I choose to. Right now, I'm good with it. So it really becomes about the choices and you listening to what the body wants and just shaking off those habits, right? If it's a habit and it's something that doesn't serve you and you know it, it takes 21 days to create a new habit, right? And all you got to do is just commit for that 21 days. You could write it down. That writing it in a journal kind of fashion is so powerful. Find 6 or 7 things that you want to accomplish in the next 30 days. And every day, write it down. I want to wake up at 5 a.m., for example. That's a huge one. A lot of the clients that I work with, I encourage them to wake up at 5 a.m. I wake up around 4:45 myself. And the reason being is I get my workout out of the way, and you don't really need to work out for 2-3 hours. 1 hour is enough. Like you could do your kinesthetic workout, you could do running, you could do push-ups, you could go to the gym for an hour. But then when you come back, you could do your meditation, you could take a shower, eat a nice breakfast. By 8 o'clock, you are ready to rock and roll, and the rest of the day is all yours. A lot of
Okay,
us,
so amazing points. Yes, 100% correct. So glad you brought this up because I feel like I've experienced this in 2 ways where one, I actually wake up and I feel good and I'm ready
Mhm.
to start the day. And a lot of other times where the moment I open up my eyes, I get groggy. I want to go back to sleep. I cannot get out of bed. It's just way too tempting to stay in the bed
You
and to
cannot or
force
you choose
myself
not to.
out. So where's the disconnect there? You know what I
Well, you
mean?
just, yeah, because here's the thing. When you said I cannot, you can do anything you set your mind to. You choose not to because you can get out of the bed. You just choose because the bed is comfortable. You have all these thoughts that are going through your head. Oh, I'm sleepy. Oh, it's just too cold. The floor is cold. I'm not ready to put my feet on it. All that stuff. But when you make that commitment, and I can guarantee you do it 21 days consistently, you could start this. If you don't want to do this with the waking up, start brushing your teeth with the non-dominant hand. The first time you do it, it's so awkward. But guess what? It's meditative because you're paying attention to every stroke, every brush. Right now, with your dominant hand, you're brushing and you're thinking about your day. You're thinking about your emails. You're thinking about the things you want to do. And half the time, you're probably half-assing it because you're not fully present. Now, if you change that with your non-dominant hand, you're going to be fully present. The first week is going to be difficult, but before you know it, by the 21st day, you're actually naturally doing it. It's just like anything else.
That's what it sounds like. In the beginning, it's going to be painful, difficult, a challenge because you're not used to it.
Right.
But when you do it enough, because I guess the mind thinks that it's never going to get used to it, but eventually you're saying it does. Once it reaches that point, then you're just used to it. And then it becomes your new identity because now you're used to it.
Yeah, I mean, think about driving, right? The very
Mm-hmm.
first time you and I sat behind the wheel, you are first of all you're excited as shit, right? You're looking at the
Mm.
wheel, you're adjusting your mirror, you're
Yeah,
making sure you
everything
know
is
all the lines.
new. You don't
Right,
know any
you are
better.
present. You're present.
You
You're paying attention to
haven't
everything. You're
sat in
coming.
any traffic in LA.
Yeah, you're coming up to full stops, you're stopping at the yellow light, like, but you are fully present with that driving experience. Now you're driving, you're drinking your coffee, you're making your phone call, you're flipping through your phone because it's become an automatic behavior. You could drive miles without even paying attention to the road, honestly. You're registering it, you're seeing it, you're operating it, but your subconscious is literally taking over. It's that pattern, it's that behavior that has become automatic now, right?
So, what ways can we make it as less painful as possible, if that's possible, to go from just starting to change the habit to actually changing the habit?
I love that question because here's what I would say. You have to have a strong why. If your why is strong enough, if you're committed to it and you feel the need, you have to be like, it's not a, oh, I should be doing this. It's a must. When you see that, okay, waking up 3 hours early a week, that's 21 extra hours that is going to get me per week, right? Multiply that by four, right? What is that? 84 hours per month. Multiply that by 12 months. You're getting, I think it's like 2 3 weeks almost extra. Like, do the math. I just kind of came up with that myself right now. I haven't done the math on that one yet, but as you can tell, it's adding. And what is our most valuable resource in this lifetime is time, right? We always say, oh, I don't have time, I don't have time. Oh, I got to go to the gym, but I don't have time. Or I got to meditate, oh, I don't have time. I want to go see family, oh, I don't have time. You're creating this time and space for yourself to literally take care of yourself first, right? Because that's centeredness. That, and I know a lot of people, is challenging for them to meditate. It was for me. I mean, I did martial arts for so many years, and honestly, meditation was not a part of it. I was mainly focused on learning the techniques for self-defense, for sparring, all that stuff. It took me later that it was like, wow, I missed out on that part of the actual meditative aspect of it and going inward with martial arts. And, even though I practiced it, I was quite successful at it. It just wasn't, it wasn't until later in life that I learned how to meditate and what that means. And a lot of it is simple. Meditation is just essentially like a quick body scan, like being able to take a deep breath in, feeling the energy going through your feet. It literally can take 5 minutes to just allow that energy to flow up, visualizing it through your feet, through your ankles. And energy flows where the focus goes, right? So as you're putting your focus in these body parts, all of a sudden your mind is turned off. You're not thinking about the troubles that you have. You're not thinking about the past. You're not thinking about the regrets. You're not worried about the future. You are fully present. You're going inward. Even when you're familiar with the chakras a little bit, as you're breathing that life source energy, you're activating the chakras. So it could be just essentially a body scan to just kind of get used to it before you can just kind of sit there and just go inward and necessarily not have to focus on that. But it's the body scan is one way of it. The other part of it is really a good time to meditate is, and I know it sounds weird, is like right before you go to sleep, you have all these crazy thoughts that are rushing in, right? About how your day went, if it was an unpleasant event, if you got something important going on tomorrow that is like giving you anxiety, you have all this coming in. Instead of fighting it, and I know it's going to sound weird, allow it to all come, welcome it. It's like, I wanted more, let it come, let it come. At some point, your brain is going to shut down. It's going to be like, enough. And at that point, you're going to find peace and you're ready to go to bed. But that's another technique that people can try. I personally prefer the body scan because that took a little while to just take away from that sleeping time. And the other part is I used to work out at night and evening. I quickly found out that my adrenaline, the way it's pumping, and I'm also drinking my supplements and everything, is not allowing me to comfortably go to sleep. That's why I usually advise my clients that, hey, get that workout out of the way in the morning because your adrenaline, take a little nice little shower and maybe even turn it off cold towards the end to just kind of get the limbic system flowing. It's really good to that cold shower. I'm not saying it started with a cold shower, but at the end of every workout, when I wash myself for a good 5-10 seconds, I turn it cold. And you're going, like when that is happening, your adrenaline is kicking in. And when you come out, man, you're wide awake. You don't need caffeine after that. That your body naturally produces all these chemicals that you just got to find out how to tap into it. Now, this is where the body doesn't want to experience that, but this is where your mindset comes in that no, this is good for me. I want it. I must experience it. I must wake up at 5 a.m. to start my day by 7:30, 7:45 to be productive and enjoy the rest of my evening the way I see fit, instead of feeling, oh, I have to go to the gym. I mean, how many people do you hear that say, I have to do this? They don't have to do anything. You choose to do it. But when it becomes that, you're not even enjoying it as much. It's like, oh, it's been a long day. I got to go to the gym. But when you change that mindset that I am doing this to take care of this beautiful vessel, that I'm going and taking it through life. I mean, think about it. Your body has had so many different carnations since the day you were born. That infant, toddler body is gone, no longer here. The body from yesterday that you had is no longer here. I mean, we have millions of cells that are dying and reproducing on a daily and hourly base, right? So when you have that mentality that everything that I'm putting in is nourishing this energy, everything that I'm doing with my body is essentially allowing me to control the quality of my life, right? What I love about Dr. Bruce Lipton is one of the people that I follow closely on epigenetics. Is essentially Epigenetics essentially means above the gene, right? A lot of us kind of going back to, you know, my family history is this, you know, there's cancer in my family and all that. It's like when you think that way, you're essentially creating that. It's not the genetics part of it. Epigenetic discovered that your thoughts create the environment. The environment is the blood that we have, right? So the thoughts create emotions, right? The emotions that we're feeling is caused by the chemicals that are released in the body, right? So when you're having these worrisome type of reactions and thoughts, you're actually affecting your DNA in a way that could cause cancer genes, could cause heart attacks. But the beautiful part of it is if your thoughts can make you sick, they can also heal you, right? That's where like
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Joe Dispenza comes in with all of his workshops and how that inner engineering goes into place of being able to heal yourself and cure your cancer by the power of the thought. And it's such a powerful thing, Adam, that we have like between our ears. And unfortunately, we allow it to run wild the way it wants to instead of us directing it towards the way it needs to go. You know, there's a
Yeah, and
difference
I
between
think a
that.
lot of it has to do with feeling like you failed. Like, let's say you try to wire in that new habit and you had it going for a day or two, but at some point, whether it's after a day or two or a weekend, you revert back to the old habit, the unwanted habit, and then you go, see, I can never change it because this always happens. Like I try, I start, and then I go right back to it.
Yeah.
So,
That statement alone is going to guarantee you're going to go back to it because you're saying that. That self
mhm.
communication, I cannot stress it enough how important that is. The second you say that, just be aware of it. Is this a statement that is going to serve me to reach my goal, or is it going to revert me back to the old habits? That alone, and that's the challenging part to be able to. It's kind of like become a fun thing for me when I'm just kind of going through my daily routine and I might say something and I just catch myself before I even spit it out because thoughts and frequencies, voice especially, has frequencies, right? So I'm like, oh, shit, I had the thought. Let me reverse it and not even say it. Let me say what I need to say, you know? And it's kind of become more of a fun thing for myself to do it because, listen, we're not perfect, right? I mean, even as coaches, you used to kind of like sometimes
Mm.
catch yourself doing it, right?
Yep,
But being able
absolutely.
to be aware of that, you're able to strengthen your qualities to be able to influence the people that we're working with also to help them achieve their goals and manifest the life that they need to have, right? And it really starts with that proper mindset to literally recognize that I am a manifester. I am manifesting what I'm experiencing, whether it's a pleasant experience or unpleasant. And nothing is good or bad, is the meaning that we give it. It literally is that, because it's just an experience in this journey that we're going through. And if you can kind of tap into, and I've been able to do that through some of the quantum healing hypnosis, tap into previous lives and just kind of like the stuff that we have experienced either with this specific spirit and the energy or just feeling that collective experience, you start accepting it in a way that you won't allow it to change you energetically. And that's a really good place to be. That's where you mainly stay in that space of the heart, that heart field that you could connect. And to that's actually the reason that we came up with the new company that we just started with my partner Andrea of Gaia and myself. It's called the 0 Point. It's think about the infinity sign, right? And the infinity sign is essentially, if you think about your divine masculine and your divine feminine connecting together right at the center of the heart. And when you're talking about how do we get in that heart field, is you have to be able to tap into both. Listen, I'm not talking about genders, right? I know we're operating in a society that non-binary, all that stuff is going on. I don't care what you identify with. I don't care if you identify with a pencil. You have a divine masculine and you have a divine feminine in you. And as
Right.
long as you're able, if you're not able to connect these two, then you can tap into both. And when I'm saying divine masculine, divine feminine, I'm not talking about your mom and dad. I'm talking about that divinity of that godness of the masculine part, that is protection, that is providing, right? That is just being able to just like making sure your safety is there. And then the divine feminine, which is nurturing, which is creative, which is loving, right? If you can combine those two, and we all have that.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the, like, we do some of the exercises that we do, and you and I have done it together. It's like the hugging exercises that I love to do is like, people tend to like either do these half-ass hugs, a tap on the back, or walk away. What you and I did, and what I've done, what I do with my clients, and just like during the sessions at the end, we usually hug for a full minute. And something magical happens when you're hugging. I don't care if you're a guy hugging a girl, or a guy hugging a guy, or same sex, it doesn't matter. The hearts align around the third or fourth breath. When that heart alignment happens, up to then you're thinking about, okay, this is weird, I don't know this person. But when you're able to actually connect to that love, to that self-love that you have, and that love for the other person, it's not a romantic love, it's that connection to that divine love. On that fourth breath, which is about 20 to 30 seconds into it, serotonin is released, which is essentially the love hormone. You can feel it running through your body. You feel your knees getting just weak, and just being able to embrace that. I mean, I love doing it because it feels so good in terms of that connection. And on average, we need about 8 to 10 hugs a day. How often do we get that? I mean, it's
Not
like
too
it's
often.
like you give one of the most amazing hugs. Like when we started embracing, I actually missed that from you. So hopefully I'll see you soon.
I don't usually give them out for free, so I missed it too, man. You know, I feel exactly the same way, and it's a beautiful experience. Absolutely.
So those would open up that heart guard. Everything that we just talked about, you're talking about how to dissolve it. Like think about all these shields that have been put on throughout years and years, and even previous generations, right? With these things that we talked about, operating in the space of heart, gratitude,
Mm-hmm.
forgiveness,
Mm-hmm.
unconditional love,
Mm-hmm.
being able to embrace yourself, and then having that self-love, knowing, like, how often do we get in front of the mirror? I don't like this. Oh, I am fat. I am this. I am that. I'm too skinny. I mean, nobody that I know just says, you know what? I love myself. I look good. Like during my meditations, the guided meditations, I make sure I take him through it, that I want them to hug themselves and just say, I love myself. I am enough. Because it's just like everything that we're saying to ourselves is just putting this DNA impression on us, that also, if you don't love yourself, what makes you think you're going to be able to manifest what you want? If you don't love this physical body that is also bringing about the physical abundance that you want to have, right? It's that wholeness that you're going to have to bring in together to be able to have the side effect, which is the abundance, right? Now, you might say that, okay, everybody that is out there that has got all these physical abilities and physical abundance, does that mean they love themselves? No, there's a lot of miserable people out there that are rich. That doesn't mean that. There are a lot of, but again, we're talking about abundance of life in terms of physical, spiritual, emotional, right? Energetic, abundant, all of that. It's, why would you want to just stick to one, right? However, it really starts with going inward, in my opinion, and feeling that spiritual and energetic connection and abundance, and the rest of it starts coming your way. That's the way, at least, it's been working for me, right? And as I see the life that I've been wanted, the relationships that I've been wanted, the people that I'm attracting, like such as yourself,
Mm-hmm.
that is the abundance of friends. That's the raising of the vibration. This conversation for me is exciting. I mean, I'm amped up. I don't need caffeine, right? It's
Absolutely.
uplifting, right? And this is
Mm-hmm.
the part that I'm just saying, like, tap into that, recognize these situations that are coming your way. I don't take any interaction with anybody for granted anymore. The other day, I was, just tell you a cool story. I was at the tire place changing the tire for my Forerunner, and there was a gentleman ahead of me who just was wearing this tiger eye bracelet that I have, something similar. So to me, I usually take omens. So I just start a conversation with them. Adam, 10 minutes later, he is in my arms crying, right? And like I
Wow.
felt that he needed it. I just opened my arms and said, "Come here," and just he just kind of like started crying. And we've been communicating. We're gonna do some work together. But you know what? When you are connected like that, and you're operating in that space of heart, and you can feel that connection. I didn't feel it right away when I was talking about the bracelet, but about a minute into it, I felt like there's something there. After I've asked them, "How are you feeling?" I don't say, "Hey, how's it going?" I always ask people, "How are you feeling?" And I'm listening to what they're saying, and I'm able to connect with that because again, my goal is when I wake up in the morning, how many lives can I impact? Who can I touch in a way that could be uplifting for them? And that to me is why I'm here for. That to me is instead of like looking that, oh my God, I got to wake up another day. I'm excited because I'm like, what other soul, what other beautiful being, my soul family can I connect with to bring light and abundance in their life in their way? And it doesn't have to be financial right away. It could be just emotional, that psychological abundance, right? The psychological sunshine that we need to have. And we don't get
Mm-hmm.
enough of that in this world, unfortunately. It's the other thing that I would just say is, man, turn off the news. I haven't listened to the news in over a year. Some people are just like, oh, I listen to I don't let it affect me. It does. I will be the first
Oh
one to
yeah,
tell you
yeah, you
that
better believe it. It does. Yeah.
it is such a
Super
toxic
negative.
thing, and there's nothing positive in it. Uh, and Unfortunately, our social media has turned into something that is not about uplifting. I mean, I personally love watching Gaia TV. There's so many different programs in terms of spirituality, in terms of psychological help, psychological sunshine, anything that you need to find. Um, I'm not affiliated with them yet. Maybe one day, but there are just so many different things in terms of everything that I just talked about, like Akashic records, what it is, how to tap into it. So I would highly recommend watching something that is educational, that is going to uplift your spirit instead of putting worry into it. I mean, I think they still are releasing COVID numbers in California. I mean, I'm like, are you freaking kidding me at this point? But that fear that they're still being created in people, that's what's causing a lot of these lower vibrations. And then you're wondering, why am I not able to manifest what I want? Why am I having the poor health? Why am I experiencing this physical pain? A lot of the physical pain, some people that I work with through Reiki, it's not just energetic healing. I mean, if you ever go on my YouTube, there's a gentleman that I work with. He was experiencing with sciatic pain. It can actually take physical pain out, and he was just taking pills for it. But once we discovered that, so I took him through some guided meditation, and we just kind of like went through the first time he discovered this pain, and it was around the traumatic event. What was the time before that? Another traumatic event. What was the very first time? Three energetically traumatic event, and his sciatic pain is going on. And I'm like, what do you think it is? He's like, oh shit. And you're going to the doctor, and they're just like, oh, I have a sciatic pain, and they're just like, start writing you a prescription for it. So we started pairing those, and we actually went back further. We found out that actually his parents had experienced something like that, which was essentially around like loss of children during the pregnancy, and he was experiencing some of that because he was the last child that after that trauma. So this DNA was in him that was being triggered. So aside from clearing that through energy work, his previous pre even being conceived through that DNA, and what we did with him, and also clearing his offsprings because he's got two beautiful kids, and they are being imprinted by that. So as we went through that, it's just kind of making sure it stops with them, so it's not carrying over, so they're not suffering from this. And these are some beautiful things that science is starting to actually pay attention to. Um, it's like again, when you go on Gaia, if you do, definitely look up Dr. Teresa Ballard, Dr. Joe Dispenza, Dr. Bruce Lipton, Dr. Wayne Dyer. I mean, these are all doctors that are actually practicing and teaching these things, and it's time to just shift that just from the focus of, listen, if I need a surgeon, I don't need a Reiki master. Trust me, when I need surgery, yes, take me to the hospital, sew me up, right? But when it's the stuff that is causing disease within this physical body, I can guarantee you a lot of it is the life choices and the stress that we've been all under since as far as we can remember. And it's starting to manifest in terms of tumors, it's starting to manifest in terms of heart attack, in terms of manifest in terms of our eating habits and our exercise routine and regimen. And it's really easily fixed. And that's what I usually do is in terms of like holistic approach with it to make sure we're actually identifying what's blocking you from achieving what you need to achieve. I mean, if you are looking for love, for example, but you're not really having self love for yourself, it's a little challenging to attract that because, again, vibrations of it is different, right? People might call it confidence, but I call it self love, because if you have self love, confidence comes naturally, right? And people respond to that you are a loving person. You do have self love, whether or not they recognize that's what they're picking up on you or not. But that vibration of self love also connects you with others because it's easier to love others, as that oneness when you have that self love and connection and feeling whole that you are enough, right? So
Right.
that's the way I
Let's
look at
go
it,
into
man.
that next time. Let's continue this conversation next
Yes.
time for sure,
Wow,
because
I didn't
there's a
realize
lot
we've been
more to
talking for
touch
so
on.
long.
No, it's all good. That's what happens, man.
Yeah,
Time flies when you're
I
having these
know.
kind of conversations, for sure.
Hey, I
Yeah,
would love for your audience if they ever wanted to also check out my Instagram and podcast. It's at
absolutely. Where
Brainwashed.
can they find you?
Yeah, it's Lucifer the Lightbringer at Brainwashed Creations. That's my personal one. The one that I started with Andrea of Gaia, which she also has her own Instagram. She's a powerful healer. It's called 0 Point Activation. 0 Point, again, kind of like coming to that center of the infinity on Instagram. And we're just starting our podcast and YouTube channel. So I have my personal stuff and also the partner that I have would love to actually be able to connect. And again, it's all about raising that collective vibration and frequency. So thank you for the opportunity, man.
Absolutely. It was an honor to have you, a pleasure to have you. And like I said, we'll continue this conversation soon. Everybody, thank you for tuning in as always. We're sending you lots of love and light. And until next time, peace.